Out of the 10 impurities of insight, we have discussed eliminations, knowledge, piti, passaddhi, sukha, adhimokha, upatthana, one by one. At this stage, as already discussed or mentioned, we are said to be cultivating the 37 factors of enlightenment, Bodhipakkhya, Dhammas. Whoever sustain the practice with the full foundation of mindfulness, setting in motion like a wheel, respectfully and carefully, is bound to cultivate knowledge, beginning with the discernment of mind and body, especially at the stage of Uddiyava Jnana, experiencing these illuminations and so on in an extraordinary manner, experiencing piti, passaddhi, sukha, adhimokha, resolute faith. At this stage, saddha also will have this controlling power. It will dominate over non-faith, non-saddha, because it possesses the power of controlling factor. Because it possesses indriya, its function. It functions as indriya, controlling factor, and also possesses powers, bala, or power of controlling factor. So, and also at the same time, virya, called pagaha, uplifting energy, also comes to be possessed. And so is upatthita sati, sustaining the mindfulness, to penetrate or to sustain on the object of observation, as though the noting mind enters the object of observation automatically. And with the sustained mindfulness, there's also involved this samadhi. With sati, there's bound to be samadhi as a natural consequence. Although samadhi is not mentioned in the 10 impurities of insight. But as the mindfulness is involved, so will be samadhi automatically as a natural sequence. So as has been said, we are developing and enhancing these positive mental factors so that it has a power of overcoming the opposite states. If it is not developed, if it's weak, then it will not be, they will not be able to overcome the opposite states, negative states. Now they have been enhanced, developed, energized, so that they are able to overwhelm or dominate the opposite states. So with the knowledge, one dominates or overcomes delusion, lack of clarity, confusion, bewilderment. In this way, saddha also arises continuously. So is virya continuously. All these indriya dhammas, controlling factors, arise continuously and rotate like a wheel. Such is Dhamma Chakra. And as a result of this Satipatthana and Dhamma Chakra, the result is the controlling factors, the controlling faculties and powers of saddha and so on. When one fulfills the course, one is bound to realize the benefits. Prior to the enlightenment of the Buddha, there are no beings, nobody to show the truth, nor there are any Dhamma, the universal truth, nor there are any Sangha who practices in accordance with the instructions given by the truth, principles of the truth. So there was never acceptance of this karma and karma result. There had never been this acceptance of karma and karma result. And no faith, not believing in existence, only accepting the present existence, what is present, not the past or the future. Only when one encounters catastrophes, dangers, then one hurriedly go and worship things like forests, or mountains, or rivers, or fires, and so on. They go to all these things and other autonomous beings, omnipotent beings, as their protectors, as their saviors. Only after the appearance of the Buddha was there this sustained mindfulness. As a result of such sustained mindfulness, all the truth is illumined in the mind through one's own experiential knowledge, coming to acceptance, conviction, and resolution. And also the heroic energy of virya comes to be possessed, and so are the sati, samadhi, and panya in stages. How worthy it is to have a chance of practicing after the appearance of the Buddha. So the Buddha propounded this wholesome middle states, which have the power of dominance, such as saddha, to let them arise in one stream of consciousness, and preached the Dhamma with cause and effect to inspire and encourage the faithful beings in order to practice Satipatthana, so that they are able to cultivate extraordinary concentration and knowledge, and until to become Ariyas, the noble ones. So, in this way, these controlling faculties and powers come into existence or arise in the world. So, in order that this Satipatthana, the traditional practice, may not disappear, we are sustaining this practice at the moment. Today we shall discuss the ninth impurity of insight, namely upekkha, which means mindfulness in a balanced way, in an equipoised manner, without being biased or without going to any extremes this way or that way, and to strike the balance and let the mindfulness proceed in an equilibrium manner. In the text are given 10 kinds of upekkha, which we cannot discuss due to lack of time, and we can only discuss what is relevant to the impurities of insight, namely Vipassana upekkha and avijjana upekkha. As regards the avijjana upekkha, either when one is going to have these sense impressions such as seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and so on, or one is going to note or activate mindfulness, or when one thought process is about to happen, that is such an investigative consciousness as, oh, what is this? In this way one investigates. Like the example of this boat, when you steer with the rudder, the bow will go wherever you steer. If you steer in the right direction, it will go in the right direction. If you steer into a wrong direction, it will go into the wrong direction. So as much as you steer with the rudder, depending upon the rudder, the bow will move whichever direction that you want it to go. So also this avijjana investigation. If this consciousness has a right attention, right attitude, then the following thought processes will be pure and unblemished. If this consciousness is wrong or not good, then the succeeding thought processes will be impure. and undesirable. So, depending on this steering of the avijjana, with the right attitude, the thought processes will be right, and if as a result of the steering action of avijjana, if the attitude is wrong, then the following thought processes will be wrong. Such is avijjana citta. As for the yogis, as is said in the Vipassana maxim, to guard the mind all the time of every arising, such as seeing, hearing, and so on. There is this the prior definition or defining or limiting or decision, commitment, that one will note every arising mind-body objects. In this way, one has already defined or committed that one will do that. One is going to note every arising object. And secondly, one has been skilled and experienced in the practice of mindfulness many times, so that since the one is reflecting on the arising and passing away of the objects, this avijjana citta, the investigating consciousness or reflecting consciousness, as this reflection occurs, avijjana citta occurs, it will be followed by the thought processes which are made up of these jhavana, what we call jhavanas, impulsions. The one comes to comprehend the arising and passing away. And this is what is known as upekkha. As for the to explain both from the text and the practical aspects, as for the yogis, whenever all they see and hear things which can arouse negative emotions, kilesas, no kilesa arise in them. Only pure states of mind arise. Only skillful states of mind arise in their mind. This is due to four factors. Out of these four factors, we shall examine these two things, nimitta and samudra citta. These two things. The first one is the commitment. You are committed to let only skillful states to arise, that is the ordinary sense, or to let noting mind arise all the time. You are committed to it. So you have already decided, make a resolution in the beginning. Like the saying, to guard the mind all the time with vigilant mindfulness of every arising. You have committed to this practice not to miss every arising object. Of course, there are times that you miss them, although you are committed, but for some reason or other, you miss them. But you are still committed to it. You are still committed to note every arising, not to miss anything, although you may miss for reasons, uncontrollable reasons, unavoidable reasons. So in ordinary sense, you are committed to perform skillful deeds, that I will do good things. This is the first one. In the case of the mindfulness also, that you are committed to let pure states of mind arise, only skillful states of mind arise. And furthermore, you have this practice, your skill in the practice, not to miss any object. Every second of the practice, every minute, hour, and day, in stages, you are developing these pure states of mind, enhancing them. This is samudra charita. Letting the pure state of mind, which are the same nature, because they are all alike. The preceding mindfulness is continuous with the succeeding mindfulness. They are all the same. They are the same nature. They are the same nature. So the same nature of this pure state of mind arises as a result of your commitment. Because of a commitment, you have this practice, skill. And when you combine these two things, commitment and skill, things arise as you have committed. That is avijjana, and you are able to comprehend this arising and passing away. That is as the sequence of your commitment and skill. This Vipassana, insight knowledge, arises by leaps and bounds. So in this way, first of all, says avijjanupekka kilesa arises, which is followed by vibhasnupekka kilesa. Avijjana upekilita, avijjana upekilila, upekka, avijjana upekka, followed by vipassana upekka. As for the yogis, in the beginning of the practice or before they are able to advance in bhavana, meditation, at the tender stage, initial stage, although one is initiating one's energy to note every arising object, to be concurrent with every object, one will be always trying to note, trying to be concurrent with the object by precise focusing, which is a jhanic factor, nurturing this mental state. Although one is doing that, there may be other reflections, intervening reflections. This may happen many times, overshooting the object, superficial noting, and not being able to note and missing some of the objects at the same time. So the noting mind may be hesitant to connect with the object to be noted, just like pulling bullock, which is very lazy, a lazy cow or bullock. If you're pulling, then it won't come very easily or willingly. So also the mind is hesitant and slow, and this phenomena can happen with the yogis. At the stage of this Uddiyāvaya Jnana, as it rises intensively, very powerfully, there's no need for extraordinary or special, unusual exertion of energy, nor is there any need for finding new objects to be noted. And as the previous noting mind continues with the succeeding, the first is followed by the second, the third, and so on, one by one. One is able to connect with the arising and passing away of objects of observation in a very concurrent manner, as though one feels as though the noting mind is rushing or plunging into the object to be noted. As much as the new objects arise, the noting mind also plunges into these newly arising objects. And earlier on, one has to exert energy in order to note even these two things, namely the rising and falling, which are the primary objects, although at times one overshoots or misses these objects, even these two objects. And also to note ever arising, newly arising objects, to connect with them. Now with the commitment and skill, one is able to note automatically, connect with the objects automatically. As rising takes place, one comes to know at once, rushing into the object with full force, the sensations, stiffness, tension and movement. And as falling comes up at once, no sooner as it comes up, then one's noting mind reaches that connects with that object concurrently with full force. So the commitment is avijjanupekka, and the noting with full force is vipassanupekka. As one reflects committed to this avijjana, then one need not exert special or extra energy, and instead of without this exertion of energy, you are able to connect with the arising and passing away psychophysical phenomena. And then one knows as they arise. This is vipassana jnana, cultivating vipassana jnana as they arise without extra effort. One comes to comprehend arising and passing away. This is vipassanupekka. One is able to comprehend or connect with the object in a very comfortable manner and without extra exertion. So, as they arise, one is able to comprehend them. And another way of calling this avijjana is yoniso manasikara. Yoniso, in the right attitude, the mind in the right way, and manasikara, keeping the mind in the right way, having right attitude, as to note as they arise, to note things as they arise, to see the truth, truth as it is, things as they are. In this way, one comprehends things as they are, not that kind of thing that what is happening is one thing, and what you know or what you give attention is another. But here, the right attitude, the right attention, or the right attitude in respect of things, knowing them as they are. And in this way, by doing so, you are able to activate this mindfulness in a very extraordinary manner, so that the noting mind is concurrent with the object. In this way, you are able to comprehend with the full force of knowledge. This is vipassanupekka. So, as regards these two things, avijjanupekka and vipassanupekka, if one thinks in terms of what is being said in this text, Anguttara Nikaya Suttanta, then one will be able to verify it as correct. What has been said in the text is, in order to cultivate Vipassana Samadhi and Mega Samadhi, in short, Vipassana Jnana and Mega Jnana, there are two causes. One is paradoxa, that is to listen or follow the method as from the Buddha, from the virtuous beings such as Buddha, that is knowing the correct method from the teachers. The second one is ajjatam yoniso manasikara, right attitude as regards objects arising in the body. In other words, to miss, not to miss anything, any object. So previously you are committed to this, you have that intention, the attitude in order to note everything, and then you do so, you have the practice, you are skilled in the practice. So with these two things, you are on the right track of Vipassana. Vipassana, you are on the right track, and you are straight on the Vipassana path. So that as you are straight on the Vipassana path, as you are noting, you are bound to know. The knowledge will follow automatically. Now the yogis are practicing in order to cultivate Vipassana Jnana leading to Riya Jnana. With these two causes, namely paradoxa, listening learning the correct practice from the virtuous ones, from the spiritual guides, and then paying attention with right attitude to note every arising object, not to miss them. So with these two things, if they are noting as soon as the object rises, no sooner has the object arisen, then your noting mind is goes to connect with that object. So that a sudden arising of the object is avijjanupekha, and then noting and knowing with full force is vipassanupekha. Without any need for extra exertion of energy, things are arising automatically, and then noting mind also is noting automatically and with full force, being mindful and fully aware. Every time such things happen, these two upekkha's are involved, avijjanupekha and vipassanupekha. Hence they are considered as the impurity of insight, one of the impurities of insight. Connecting with the object without any extra effort, extra exertion of energy, one is able to comprehend, to note them with full force. Such a thing, such a phenomena is quite desirable and very satisfying. Too satisfying. The mind is too sharp that one becomes attached. That leads to attachment, nikanti, subtle attachment. Oh, this is, I can do it, that sort of thing. The ego arises. Together with the view of atta, self also, atta is helping me. Or this is atta, or there's atta in it. That sort of thing. This leads to clinging of views. So that the vipassana becomes impure, it tends to lag behind. It tends to slow down because the objects are rising automatically to be noted, ready to be noted, and the noting mind is noting without extra effort. Such a situation is quite desirable. Hence, it is considered as an impurity of insight. In the Visuddhimagga, path to purity, the Mahatika, great commentaries to Visuddhimagga, is given that this vipassanupekha, in essence, is tatra majatata, which is one cetasika mental state. Tatra majatata meaning keeping in the middle these the objects. Those objects. Tatra, those objects. Those objects are considered in a balanced way, keeping in the middle. So, whatever arises, whether it's good or bad, one is able to follow them without extra effort, without any imbalance, but in a balanced way, with equipoise, not being on either side. Hence is tatra majatata. This is upekha, balanced mental state. In the earlier impurity of insight, we have also mentioned jnana as one of the impurities of insight. This also is another kind of jnana, but we are having this jnana repeatedly. But we just make difference between just pure jnana, upekilesa, and this one. In the another text known as Patisambhida Mega Atakata, it is shown that this, although it is a balanced state, because of the calmness of the mind, this is taken as samadhi. This samadhi itself is taken as upekha. Is another way of rendering this upekha as samadhi. There is another way of rendering, treating this subject in the Patisambhida Megha. Is although in the Visuddhimagga is given as this is another way of jnana. But since the investigation of these formations, conditions, psychophysical phenomena, sankharas, it is more strange or more extraordinary, more unique, should say, more unique than jnana upakilesa. Just jnana as pure upakilesa. Although this is a kind of jnana as mentioned in the Visuddhimagga, here it is mentioned as samadhi because at the beginning of this jnana, in the initial stages of knowledge, jnana, there is no such thing as comprehending without extra effort. At this stage, when it comes to this stage, one knows with full force, so that it is quite correct that this is to be treated not quite as jnana. The Venerable, most benefactor, Venerable benefactor Mahasi Sayadaw also has this view in his mind. And also it is in keeping with what is happening in the yogi's practice, as one pays attention to whatever arises immediately in the body. One is committed to note every arising object without missing, plus the experience which one gains in this mindfulness practice, especially at the stage of this Uddiyāvaya jnana, one is able to note and know these rising and passing away psychophysical objects without extra effort. As soon as no sooner has the object has arisen, then the noting mind is there, connected, noted. So in this way, one notes and knows in a very comfortable way, without too much exertion of energy. So that what Mahasi Sayadaw takes the idea which is held by Mahasi Sayadaw is just in keeping with what is happening in the yogi's practice. This is quite appropriate, and also yogi's practice. The yogi's practice is in keeping with what is being given in the text. So in the 10 impurities of insight, the second one is jnana, that also is jnana. And the 9th impurity of insight also, which is upekha, is considered a kind of jnana, so that it is a repetition. There may be one may question, one may ask, why repetition? At the first jnana, pure jnana, has impurity of insight, the noting mind, mindfulness and fully awareness do not occur without extra. They do not occur without extra energy. Casual noting. Whereas at this stage, this happens without any extra effort, because it is combined with this avijjana, reflection or commitment. As much as one is committed, one is able to cultivate knowledge, and that is the unique difference of this second one, jnana, upekha, which is taken as jnana, a kind of jnana. The 10th and the last one of the impurity of insight is nikanti, subtle attachment. I forgot the term. This insidious kind of attachment which creeps in without you knowing, unconsciously. This one becomes attached to these illuminations and so on, which are quite desirable objects of attachment, and in the course of the practice, these things happen, and one becomes attached with subtle attachment. Such is nikanti. seeing these illuminations and all that, becoming attached to Dhamma delight, cultivating mind and insight, one reaches experience delight, which is not worthy to be relinquished. You don't want to relinquish it, unrelinquishable, which is good in itself, and the kind of delight which is out of reach of human endeavors. This kind of bhavana rati, one thinks that this is better than the other one. The other one means sensual delight, other delights. And this kind of delight, bhavana rati, is pure, and that kind of delight is impure. In this way, one wishes to leave sensual pleasures or other pleasures and only become attached to this Dhamma delight and seeing illuminations and so on. And this is nikanti, subtle attachment, and one mean at the first look, it doesn't look like a kilesa. It doesn't appear as true kilesa, because one is become attached. One is experiencing the delight of the bhavana. One thinks that this is the real bhavana rati. One mistakes this as the real, genuine Dhamma delight. And in this way, one thinks this is real insight, liberating insight. One mistakes it for liberating insight. And because of this liberating insight, because you have gained insight, this kind of Dhamma delight arises. In this way, you come to hold a mistaken view. And this is the real upakilesa, impurity of insight. By just becoming attached in a subtle way, one's Vipassana practice can be disrupted. One is said to have gone a wrong way, distorted from the path of Vipassana. And then there will be this attachment to nikanti, the subtle attachment. And then also one will have this wrong view, deity, that deity, like this is I, who is getting attached. And only this thing happens only in me. So in this way, this ego attachment will arise with mana, pride and conceit, and in this way leading to atta deity, clinging to views. Once this kind of idea comes into the yogi's mind, then Vipassana practice is bound to be disrupted. So at every mindfulness practice, these upakilesas may occur in the noting mind. Sometimes different numbers, number 2, 3, 5 and so on, may happen at once, or sometimes all the 9 things, individuals of insight, may arise in the noting mind all at once. Now as regards the former 9 impurities, they happen with a pure state of mind. They are said to be pure. But the last one, nikanti, itself is impure. It is unskillful state of mind because it's attachment. Hence it is unskillful, whereas the first 9 ones are pure states of mind. So sometimes you have 1 or 2, sometimes 9 things may happen. But if the 10th one, nikanti, happens, then this is impure state of mind. So all these 10 things cannot arise together, because the first 9 ones are pure and the last one is impure. they will not mix. So the first 9 ones are pure, and the nikanti is impure, akusala. So as not to let this nikanti, unskillful state of mind, arise, what you have to do is just note them off. Just continue, activate mindfulness, so as not to allow this attachment to arise or stagnate with this attachment. And then, if you are able to progress by noting this nikanti, then your mindfulness will progress and you'll be on the right track of Vipassana. The first 9 impurities of insight are not the real kilesas, Vipassana kilesas. These impurities, so-called impurities, such as illuminations, piti, passaddhi, jnana, sukha, and all these things are the Dhamma qualities, experiences. And if you don't, when they arise, if you don't note these as objects to be noted, then unknowingly you'll be attacked by this subtle attachment, nikanti. So nikanti is a result of these impurities, the so-called impurities, illuminations and so on, which are the causes for the attachment. Attachment is the real impurity, unskillful mental state, whereas the first ones are pure ones, but they are the causes for this nikanti attachment. And because they are the causes for the effect, and because the effect is a real impurity, because they are connected, related, the first 9 impurities are also included as, considered as impurities of insight, although they are not the real ones. So as not to let this impurity, nikanti, arise, all you have to do is just note. As you see these illuminations, experience jnana, piti, passaddhi, lightness, levitation, malleability, wieldiness, proficiency, rectitude, and so on, or sukha, or when they arise, just note them as objects to be noted. Then, when you note them, you become aware of its impermanent nature. They arise and pass away. Experiencing that, you will consider them as undesirable, unsatisfactory, so that this nikanti attachment will not have a chance to arise in your noting mind. Thus, in this way, Vipassana path will be, you'll be walking straight on the Vipassana path. Vipassana path will be straight and not distorted. And then in the text is given this nurturing of Vipassana samadhi, just like nurturing a sapling of insight. Sapling, like by a gardener or farmer, and this gardener has got to erect a fence around this plantation, that is committing oneself to precepts of virtue, sila, and then listening to the talks as and when necessary, like watering this sapling in order to let it grow. And then working the soil, applying fertilizers and so on, like this Dhamma discussion with the meditation teachers. And then prevent the insects from falling, attacking the plants, and if the plants have already been attacked by the insects or pests, just remove them by suitable means. So, and also at the same time remove the weeds, weeding process. With all sorts of method, you nurture the plant. But in spite of this care taken by the gardener or the farmer as regards the sapling, there can be this very subtle things like cobwebs and all, wrapping around these plants so as to stunt the growth. The growth of the plant will not become very evident. It will not grow very freely. So just like removing, or just like weeding, so as not, or removing the Nivarana insects and kilesa weeds. So also you got to remove these cobwebs. Although they're not very strong, obvious ones, but in a subtle way they can also entangle the plants, wrap it up, and they slow down the growth of the plants. This is like nikanti, which can slow down the practice, like slowing down the growth of the plant. Eventually, the plant can also die. So the gardener or the farmer has got to remove these subtle things, cobwebs as well, so as not to entangle the plants, in order to cultivate this palava vipassana, powerful insight from weak form of insight. Only then one is bound to reap the Ariya Megaphala fruit. And this is in accordance with the Sutta known as Anuggahita Sutta. This goes on the nurturing of plants, nurturing of insight. So also one has got in the practice, when one encounters these impurities of insight, of course one is free from the obvious sensual pleasures of senses. But this subtle attachment, although it is not obvious pleasures of sense, pleasures of senses, it is in itself also a kind of attachment which can disrupt the practice. So one has to remove them, just as we remove the cobweb, so that one would not stagnate within. Instead, one will be able to walk along the right path of vipassana.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Mm.
That's all.